Okay, I think we can start our eNeuron webinar. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this first eNeuron webinar, contributing to the energy transition. I am Maria Laura Di Somma, research scientist and project manager at Enea. And together with Christina Papadimitriou, who is the technical coordinator of the eNeuron project from Technical University of Eindhoven, we would like to say you welcome to this first eNeuron webinar, where we are going to discuss how we can contribute to the energy transition through the concept of integrated local energy communities. First of all, I would like to highlight, which is the main goal of this webinar. We are now approaching month 30 of the entire project for the entire duration of 48 months. So we are ready to present you our preliminary outcomes. And we would like also to foster open discussion and brainstorming on the opportunities offered by the integrated local energy communities for contributing to the energy transition. So we are at the right point to get your valuable insights and feedback to be implemented in our activities in the project. This webinar will consist of 5 presentations. The first presentation is mine, and I will share this presentation with Christina, and we will introduce the project, the main goal, the motivation, the scope, and also the concept of the Neuron Toolbox for the optimal design and operation of integrated local energy communities. This presentation will be followed by a presentation by André Mock from SINTEF, who will discuss about the pan-European decarbonization targets and how the energy communities can contribute to achieve the environmental goals and the political targets set by the European Commission in medium and long term. Then there will be the presentation from José Rossi from Università Politecnica delle Marche. We'll discuss about enabling technologies and solutions in integrated local energy communities by also focusing the attention on strengths and weaknesses. Then there will be the presentation from my colleagues Martina and Amedeo, who will discuss about the key actors in integrated local energy communities by focusing the attention on benefits of local flexibility and the impact on the larger system. Finally, there will be the presentation from EPRI colleagues Peter and Alessio, who will present you the eNeuron use cases and innovative business models for an effective implementation of integrated local energy communities in Europe. As I said before, actually, we really want to have with you an open discussion, an interactive discussion. So after each technical presentation, you will be asked to participate to the question and answer session on the presented topic through Slido platform. And then we will discuss together the responses at the end of the webinar. Now we'll ask to Germana, who is the organizer of this webinar from Icons, to give some instructions on how to use this Slido platform for this question and answer session. Germana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria Laura. Good morning to everyone and welcome to this webinar. You will see that the panelists will have their presentation to share with you, with the whole audience. Then the panelists will show two questions from each presentation to the audience. The panelists will explain first question 1 on their presentation. We will open the poll for you to reply, giving you 1 minute to reply to the questions provided by the panelists. Then we will pass to question number 2. The panelists will describe the question to the audience. You will have again 1 minute to reply, and then we will close the poll. This will go for each presentation. The wrap up and the results of the poll will be presented at the end of the session. So thank you for participating, and for any questions, please use the chat that you have in your panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Germana, for these clear instructions. So, well, I really wish you a fruitful webinar. And let's start with the first presentation, that is my presentation on the introduction to eNeuron project. First of all, I would like to start with the motivation based on which the eNeuron idea was born. We all know that electrification today is considered the most valid, cost-effective pathway for reaching the decarbonization targets set by the European Commission in medium and long term. In this figure, actually, I put in comparison the current energy scenario, where actually the electricity network is usually used for satisfying the electricity demand in buildings, and boilers supplied by gas networks are used for satisfying heat demand. And this figure is put in comparison with what we mean for the electrified future, where we expect that the electricity network will be used to satisfy all types of energy demands in buildings. So of course will be used for satisfying the electricity demand, but also thermal demands, for example, through electric heat pump or electric boilers. And this will be, of course, coupled with thermal storage. But this type of electrified scenario actually poses several challenges to the energy system as a whole. And several questions may arise. The first question is, how much additional power network capacity do we need to satisfy all types of final energy demands in buildings? And the second important question is, what happens in case there is a contingency in the power system? So an electrified future really needs important investment in the current electrical infrastructure, and so it may not be considered, let's say, the real most valid cost-effective pathway for reaching this decarbonization of final energy consumption. Why do we need energy systems integration? Meeting the ambitious energy and climate goals set by the European Commission requires the commitment beyond the electricity sectors, and we really need to provide decarbonization across different sectors through an integrated approach. This is the main idea behind the concept of integrated energy systems that are very well, let's say, explained and defined in the ETIPS Net Vision 2050 report, where these systems are identified as an integrated infrastructure for all energy carriers with the electrical system as a backbone. Actually, when we couple different sectors, we are actually increasing efforts in a synergic way by coordinating the planning and the operation of systems across multiple energy carriers. So we have electricity, we have gas, we have heating, we have cooling, we have mobility, we have hydrogen. And this, of course, will allow us to achieve a more flexible, reliable, and efficient energy system as a whole, because we are going to exploit the synergies coming from the interplay of multiple energy carriers. So if electrification of final consumption is combined with integration of energy sectors, decarbonization of final energy demand will be reached through higher penetration levels of renewables in all energy and use sectors. And we are also going to get higher flexibility of the energy system as a whole by reducing the needs for reinforcing existing network infrastructure. In this figure, actually, I put in comparison the current energy system as it is now and the integrated energy system that we expect to reach in the near future, where we have different energy carriers. We have electricity network, and we have gas, and we have heating, we have cooling. We have several types of energy technologies that in coordination and combination are going to satisfy the multi-energy demand of buildings user. So energy systems integration allows increasing efficiency in the energy resource use through exploiting synergies coming from the interplay of different energy carriers. And through this higher energy efficiency in the resources use, we are also going to increase the reduction of renewable energy sources curtailment. So by increasing the penetration of renewables in final energy uses. So I've taken this figure from the ETIPSNet Vision 2050 report, where actually the integrated energy system is very well represented. So for us, the integrated energy system is a system of a system. So an integrated infrastructure for all energy carriers with the electrical system as a backbone that is characterized by a high level of integration between all energy carriers. So that is obtained by coupling electrical networks with gas networks, heating, cooling, mobility, and of course, this is supported by energy storage of different sectors and energy conversion processes. According to this vision, these systems will be completely digitalized with a high level of automation and will be designed and operated to prevent or minimize the effects of unforeseen events by activating local black star capabilities within minutes. But this type of integrated energy system is very complicated to implement. So actually, researchers prefer a bottom-up approach by considering this concept of integrated energy systems at a local level. And at the local level, this system becomes a confined local multi-energy system that is well represented here in this figure, where the locally available energy resources can be exploited at their full potential to satisfy the multi-energy demand of end users. And this, of course, can happen with or without a connection to distribution systems as a result of implementation of different types of electrical thermal technologies, different types of energy storage, and the optimal management of energy flows. Here you can see, let's say, a local multi-energy system that we are going also to consider in our project, where we can have different type of primary energy resources, both renewable and fossil fuels. We can have different type of energy conversion and storage technologies by considering all energy carriers. And through combination, through coordination of these energy technologies, we can satisfy the time-varying multi-energy demand of buildings by considering different sectors as tertiary, residential, and industrial sectors. The concept of a local multi-energy system is very well, let's say, represented by the concept of integrated local energy community that today can be considered an efficient and sustainable way to manage energy at the local level by also fostering consumers' engagement and empowerment. What we mean for integrated local energy community. For us, this concept refers to a set of energy users who decide to make common choices in terms of satisfying their energy needs in order to maximize the benefits deriving from this collegial approach, thanks to the implementation of multi-energy technologies and energy storage and the optimized management of energy flows. These communities are able to effectively integrate energy carriers through a variety of local generation of electricity and heat, flexible demand, energy storage, and electric mobility. They also offer the possibility of cross-sector integration at the local level by integrating the smart grid and demand-side management technologies, thereby increasing the end-user engagement in this energy paradigm. And they can be employed to support the grid by providing ancillary services and flexibility through different products such as demand response, congestion relief, local energy markets, and so on. This is the main idea behind the eNeuron project. eNeuron stands for Green Energy Hubs for Local Integrated Energy Community Optimization. It is an innovation action. It has an entire duration of 48 months. It started in November 2020, and actually we are at month 29. We are going to approach month 30. It has a total budget of 6 million euros. It is coordinated by Enea and by me, and it is the technical coordination of Eindhoven University of Technology. We can count on support coming from 18 partners coming from 9 European countries. And in this map, you can see that we are very well spread in Europe. And so we can bring together our different experiences for the scope and the objectives of our project. And we have the honor, the pleasure, and the commitment to test our technical solutions through 4 different multi-energy pilot sites across Europe, which are represented by high complementarity to each other. And they are located in Poland, in Portugal, in Norway, and in Italy. What is the main eNeuron idea? We want to develop innovative tools for the optimal design and operation of integrated local energy communities that integrate distributed energy resources and multiple energy carriers and different scales. Actually, in order to achieve all these benefits of integrated local energy communities, we need to plan and operate these systems in a proper way. And there are different challenges when we have to plan and operate these systems. For the planning purposes, first of all, we have different stakeholders that can be interested in the development of this new energy paradigm. For example, the interest of developers in achieving a configuration with the lowest cost might be in conflict with the interest of energy legislation to, let's say, have a system with the minimum environmental impact. That's why we need a multi-objective approach that takes into account both economic and environmental priorities when planning integrated local energy communities. On the other hand, when we have to operate a planned configuration, the main challenge is that actually we need to coordinate in an optimal way multiple energy carriers, multiple energy technologies with different energy efficiencies in order to, let's say, achieve our environmental, our economic goals, while also, of course, meeting the time varying multi-energy user demands. In order to develop these innovative tools, actually, we define the concept of energy hub. For us, the energy hub is the main architectural and operational solution for coupling multiple energy carriers. For us, the energy hub is the energy community itself, and it consists of different prosumers, which for us are micro energy hubs. So the micro energy hub in the energy community is for us the prosumer, industrial, commercial, residential, and it is an integrated energy system itself because it can consist of different types of energy technologies, of different types of energy carriers, and indeed micro energy hubs in the integrated local energy community can cooperate by coordinating and sharing all energy carriers with the aim to satisfy satisfy the energy needs of the entire integrated local energy communities. Of course, in doing this, we need to achieve some objectives, as for example, minimizing costs. That is for us the first short-run priority. But at the same time, we want to minimize CO2 emissions. This is for us the long-term priority. We want to minimize grid exchange. We want to be autonomous, so defining the concept of energy island. So the goal of the eNeuron project is to develop this integrated toolbox, okay, that consists of different tools that will be explained later by my colleague Christina. So this integrated toolbox actually has the different objectives. The first objective is the long-term design optimization of multi-carrier local energy systems. So we want to plan our integrated local energy community, aiming at identifying the optimal architecture of such systems in terms of optimized configuration alternatives through a multi-objective approach in order to take into account technical, economic, and environmental priorities and objectives. Once the system is planned, we want to, let's say, to achieve through our toolbox the optimal daily operation of this integrated system. And we will do this through a stochastic approach for taking into account uncertainties related to renewables, to energy prices, to loads, but also with a day-ahead scheduling purpose through auxiliary forecasting tools for renewables, energy prices, and energy loads. When this system is operated day ahead, we want to simulate the peer-to-peer energy trading to investigate the feasibility and convenience of the optimized day-ahead scheduling strategies from the prosumer point of view in a local real-time market. Through our toolbox, actually, we want to offer a set of functionalities for integrated local energy communities, such as minimizing capex through optimal investment to renewable energy sources and other assets. But we want also to offer functionalities for operators, so for example, by providing a tool for local congestion management, and prosumers by activating demand response and energy sharing. So now I will give the floor to Cristina. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria Laura. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. It's not in presentation mode.
Yes, now it is. So thank you, Maria Laura, for giving me the floor. Welcome to everyone on my side. I will try to give some technical concepts through the eNeuron toolbox and what we are doing in order to be successful for the objectives that have been shared already from Maria Laura. I will try not to be and to go through the details and to give you the overview of how we are implementing these innovative services. As already mentioned, the eNeuron toolbox consisting of different tools. And we need the different tools and this workflow architecture because the integrated system are highly complex, as you have already appreciated through the previous slides, because it includes generation, storage, consumption, multiple energy carriers that they're interacting with each other, and of course there is interaction with surrounding infrastructure, meaning not only the grid but also the markets. In that context, eNeuron toolbox aims to optimize the investment strategies. This means on how the energy community shall expand or even build from scratch. It aims also to analyze operational scenarios, meaning that we define strategies that makes sense for efficiency operation and optimal operation based on certain objectives, and of course to create alignment of incentives by meaning that the different participants as prosumers but also other actors that participating in this regime are aligned and not conflicting with each other. Having said that, you can see the main structure of the toolbox, as I said, in a really high level. This means that we are having three main blocks: the system planning, the operation analysis block, and the real-time operation block. These three are having distinct scopes of optimization, and there are three phases in order to succeed to the holistic energy community optimization, design, and operation. So the system planning is focusing on the years ahead system planning. As already said, this is about not only building a community from scratch, but also efficiently expanding. The second part is the operation analysis for the given system for the day ahead, and the real-time operation that, as you can appreciate, this happens in real time and close to the prosumer's premises. And of course, these three blocks, in order to be meaningful and to have meaningful results at the end of the day, they are having dependencies between the different phases, and they are interacting with each other. Now I will give you some more details on each block and discuss about the main objectives. So the main system planning phase goal, as I said, is to answer the questions on how to develop the system, how we expand the system, when should be done, and how it should be done based on different technologies and different inputs. In order to have a good overview of the planning phase, we need certain inputs that are affecting the final results, and this can be the current system configuration when we talk about expansion, expected changes in the energy community like demand growth, parameters from representative operational scenarios that are connected to the specificities of its pilot and the characteristics of potential investment options. This means that this should be tailor-made for the needs and the characteristics of its pilot. For example, based on the local conditions, there would be some primary sources that can be utilized or taken under consideration, like district heating, for example. So this carrier could be also a part of the expansion, or how we're utilizing it and how we expand the integration of the different carriers that are existing there. And the main approaches is technical, economical, cost minimization primarily, but also it is multi-criteria, as already explained, based on the specificities of its pilot. Then it comes the operational analysis phase. As you can appreciate, this is in close collaboration with the system planning, because we need to discuss about a certain system design and to make a decision about the operational analysis and the optimal dispatch, not only for the whole community, but also for the different assets of the community that are not only communal, but they are also connected to the prosumer's optimal dispatch. In order to do so, we are having a multi-objective approach. This means that we are considering the multi-carrier operation, but focusing at the same time in optimizing more than one criteria. So for us, it could be not only economic, but it could be also environmental, but this is connected also to what the community wants. So for example, in our case, we can employ and we can serve more than two objectives, or even a different combination of objectives. We can have also social criteria, for example. And in order to do so, we need some essential inputs like technology constraints, system characteristics, forecasts, and the different scenarios of rest generation and energy prices in order to have the optimal dispatch based on real conditions. And then we are having the optimal dispatch in real-time operation. As you can appreciate, this is residing in the prosumer premises, and it has direct effect on the device's control. Of course, in order to have meaningful results and outputs, we need certain inputs, that is the short-term forecast of load and rest generation, but also the technology characteristics that are residing at the consumer's premises. And what is also innovative for eNeuron is that the optimal dispatch of the previous block is served with the prosumers through the market platform. This means that this is not, the optimal dispatch is not dictated centrally and enforced to the prosumers, but we are having a more democratized approach by giving to the prosumer the freedom of choice to participate in the market platform, and based through certain incentives from the energy community level to deal with the optimal dispatch and serve the optimal dispatch according to its own operational planning. Something that has been implied already, but I would like also to highlight, is that in eNeuron, we are taking together both levels, the energy hub level, that is the energy community, but also the micro energy hub level, that is the consumer premises. And we say that each of them are entities that they are having their own operational optimal dispatch, but at the end of the day, although that the energy hub is having a central planner approach and the micro energy hub level has a decentralized approach with a peer-to-peer interaction, we can align these two levels through the peer-to-peer market, and also at the same time respect the social and the freedom of choice, the social comfort, and also the freedom of choice of the consumers. In the next, you can see that this eNeuron toolbox and innovative services will be tested in 4 pilots. As already mentioned from Maria Laura, we're having 4 pilots that are scattered throughout and across Europe, and are complementary with each other and have a vast variety of needs, specificities, local specificities, and they foster municipality in the city of Bydgoszcz, in the Polish pilot. We are having a football stadium as a facility in Norway. We are having a campus with commercial elements in the Italian pilot in Ancona, and of course we're having the naval base as an energy hub operating in Portugal. So we are having a vast choice of micro energy hub level types and energy hub level and energy communities, and we are going to explore these innovative services on how we are going to cover the needs of each pilot. Based on this toolbox and these innovative services and operations, we would like to validate the technology, the approaches, the strategies, and the tools in order to make sure that at the end of the day, the energy hub community can be served by covering the needs for optimal operation and design. But what we would also like to see through our pilot and through our project is how to enhance the involvement of the local energy consumers and producers. So we need to always keep on track for the social comfort and the social element in our project, and also to benchmark the technical solutions against sustainable business models, especially now that we are having many actors interacting with each other in this confined system. At the end of the day, we think that this project will be beneficial for the whole value chain of energy actors, and we will build up this as a bottom-up model, checking the benefits and quantifying the benefits for the consumers, for the energy hub and the energy community level, for the DSOs that can have ancillary services and support from the energy community level, the developers and the technology suppliers, but also at a wider level, the policy makers. And this means that eNeuron, although that it started in 2020, it is fully aligned with the policy of European Commission and Repower EU plan for being and promoting the self-consumption, the energy community aspect, the multi-carrier aspect, and how this is working together for the energy decarbonization. Thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Christina. So next presentation is from Andrei Mok from Sintef. So Andrei, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I will try to share my screen.
Yes, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, good. My name is Andrei Mork. I work at Sintef Energy Research as a research scientist, and I'm going to present pan-European decarbonization targets and how the energy communities contribute to achieve the environmental goals and political targets. First of all, about the pan-European decarbonization targets. I think we have a lot of pan-European level documents, so I'm going to refer only to a handful of them, which are the most important and which are basically cornerstones of the European energy policy. The first one is European long-term decarbonization strategy, a clean planet for all, which aims to make Europe climate neutral by 2050 with net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Clean Energy for All European package, also known as the Winter Package. It comprises a set of documents, several directives, in particular, European Directive on Common Rules for Internal Electricity Market and Renewable Energy Directive. The importance of these two documents is difficult to underestimate because basically they introduce several new actors, in particular the energy community as an actor, and define roles, responsibilities for the member states to grant the areas of operation to energy communities. So we'll come back to these two directives in the next slide. The next one is the 2030 Climate Target Plan. The Commission proposed to raise the European ambitions on reducing greenhouse emissions at least 55% below 1990 levels by 2030. And also, I think this goal has been revised, basically increased at least 3 times recently. And the last but not least, it's Repower EU plan, where Commission proposes to increase the headline 2030 target for renewables from 40 to 45% under the Fit for 55 package. And the most important thing of the last document is basically that despite very difficult energy situation, which is at the moment in Europe, the European Commission still reaffirms and even makes it more visible the environmental goals in the pan-European policy. So going further to terms and definitions, I have in general a lot of text in my presentation, but I assume that you are reading faster than I'm talking. And in general, the directives, they're written in a way that it's difficult to make it shorter. It's very compact already. So the two parallel directives, which have been mentioned before, the Renewable Energy Directive and the Internal Electricity Market Directive, they introduce two different actors, more or less at the same time. One renewable energy community and the second one citizen energy community. And I would not say that these two definitions are directly contradicting each other, but they're definitely not harmonized in some details. And we have to admit that it was a bit of a confusion among the stakeholders, and to a lot of attempts to clarify the issue. And for example, European Project Compile made a separate deliverable going into definitions and terms and the directives. And I think actually I advise to read this report because it makes the issue very clear. But in general, both definitions emphasize participation and effective control by the citizens, local authorities and smaller businesses whose primary economic activity is not in the energy sector. Second important issue is that participation in citizen energy communities and renewable energy communities must be open and voluntary. So basically, we can conclude that the energy communities are more about involvement of citizens into common energy activities. And it also raises a question of organization form for energy communities. What should be organization forms which should comply with requirements from the Commission, direct involvement of citizens? A bit more information about the directives, objectives of the energy communities as they are defined in 2 directives. And here we can see much more similarities between those 2. Basically, the primary purpose is to provide environmental, economic, or social community benefits for its members or the local areas where they operate rather than financial profits. So again, the headline is that energy community is not a tool to provide revenues for the citizens, it's rather a tool to involve citizens in the energy activities, especially when it comes to renewable energy. One more slide related to the directives, and here it's a lot of information, but I will say only briefly when it comes to roles and responsibilities of the energy communities. This is probably the most important part. There is a broad array of roles and responsibilities which can be granted by member states. Just if you look in the text, it says that energy communities, they may engage in generation, including from renewable sources, distribution, supply, consumption, aggregation, energy storage, energy efficiency services, charging services for electrical vehicles, or provide other energy services to its members or shareholders. So basically, really, I do not know what is left here. Interesting thing is that energy communities can act as a distribution system operators in practice. And in the very same document, it is mentioned that they're exempted from some of the duties for a DSO, for example, provision of compulsory network development plans. And it's also very interesting that even though energy communities can act as a DSO, they can still own and operate energy storage, and they can own and operate electrical charging stations, which is not allowed to DSOs. So in practice, what we have here, member states, they have a broad array of responsibilities which they can grant to the national energy communities based on national and local conditions. One more thing, just to remind you what has been previously introduced by Maria Laura. eNeuron project does not look on the energy community as such, and eNeuron project looks a bit beyond. We are looking at integrated local energy community, which presumes actually that we have a implementation of a variety of electricity and heat technologies and energy storage and optimized management of energy flows. So we actually take a step further, comparing with energy community stipulated in the previous documents. One of the activities which was made in the scope of eNeuron project, it was a comprehensive review of energy communities. Well, yes, we know that similar reviews have been done before. Among those, we can mention a review done by Bridge, for example, which is really very wide, including almost 100 energy communities across Europe. But in our case, we focused on the energy communities which are ILECs, basically, which are integrated local energy communities, not focusing on electricity exclusively, but also on other energy carriers present here. So we have looked at totally 76 energy communities across Europe. Not all European countries are represented due to practical purposes, because naturally we were focusing on the countries which are represented in the eNeuron project itself. Here you can see a broad variety of technologies represented. On the left-hand side, you can see local wind power in Ireland. In the middle, you can see small-scale hydropower in northern Italy. On the right-hand side, you can see three proud gentlemen. They are from Sweden, and they are standing in front of local district heating plant, which is fired by locally supplied biomass. And it provides district heating to the village. It's owned and operated by the villagers themselves. At the bottom of the screen, you can see photovoltaics from Denmark, and on the right-hand side, on the bottom of the screen, from Spain. I also would like to mention some of the conclusions from the screening which has been made, referring to the energy communities. First of all, if you look in the upper part of the screen, you can see a broad distribution of the incentives for creation of integrated local energy communities. We have here both interest in renewable energy, environmental concerns, sustainability wishes, very strong representation of self-sufficient energy security. Economic incentives, they're present here, 22%. They're not dominating. And we also have a presence of energy efficiency around 10%. In general, energy efficiency, it has been a traditional focus of energy communities as such. As it has been mentioned before, organizational models, they are very important for energy communities because they should ensure involvement and decision-making of the citizens themselves. So here we can see that cooperatives are clearly dominating with 43%. And this is understandable because cooperatives, especially housing cooperatives, they're very well established in Europe. They have well established framework and methods of operation, and it's actually really quite understandable that people use the same organization form, which is appropriate for energy communities. Apart from this, we have a partnership, and we have some smaller associations and some other organization models represented here. When it comes to technologies, we have a clear domination of photovoltaics, 46%, mostly because this is a kind of technology which is very easy to integrate anywhere, actually, at households, under the roofs. It does not produce any noise. It does not require a lot of maintenance. So it's one of the, and it actually has a quite high level of maturity. So it's clearly dominating technology here. We have also wind, 12%. One of the complications with wind, it has to be outside areas with a high population density due to the noise. We have also CHP, biomass, hydropower. Naturally, hydropower, it should be, you should have appropriate local conditions to have it. We have energy storage, heat pumps, and EV charging stations. And finally, on the right-hand side, we can see energy carriers, which are represented here. And we have, again, 69% of electricity is dominating energy carrier. We have 16% of biomass, thermal 12%, and we have some smaller share of hydrogen, gas, and diesel. Some learnings from the review which we have done. One thing was a bit surprising, but it seems like energy communities have existed in Europe for decades. They had different name before, and the oldest one which we discovered is from Sweden, and it was organized back in the 70s, and it was a kind of idealistic type of society which was very popular at the time, where people had a alternative way of life, very close to nature, very environmentally friendly way of life. Then they continued with energy efficiency actions, and afterwards they actually naturally took a step further and continued with photovoltaics. So it's one of the most long-lasting energy communities which we have seen. But in general, yes, energy communities as such, they have been existing for a while. Secondly, it also appears from the feedback that we received that energy communities can be an efficient tool to utilize local resources or combination of this. And naturally, these resources vary from country to country. Bioenergy, it can be biomass, basically wood, it can be biogas, very often used for small-scale district heating. We have several examples from Sweden. Photovoltaics, it's dominating in Southern and Central Europe. Utilization of available areas, both on the ground and on the roofs, but we have also quite a big share of photovoltaics in Northern Europe as well. Small-scale hydropower, it's also a local resource which is available in some of the countries, especially in Norway, something in Italy. I also know about small-scale hydropower in Austria. This is a resource which is available, but very capital demanding for development, because very often it's located in remote areas. So it's actually quite expensive to develop it. And what happens with energy community, it's a group of people which raises the capital which is necessary for development of a certain resource. And finally, wind power, and we know example of Denmark. Next, also I forgot to mention that also indication that the energy communities which are connected to local resources, as it has been mentioned before, they're probably the most sustainable in an economic sense of view. Talking about economics, we have an indication that several communities have economic difficulties, and some of them, they're saying that they're enjoying some sort of incentives from the authorities, some kind of tax breaks, and without these incentives, for them, it would be difficult to survive. As it has been mentioned before, housing cooperatives appear to be the most appropriate organization type, which is very well established with a national legal framework, and in general, it seems to comply very well with their own European requirements. Selection of the mature technologies for energy communities, it seems to be limited because we have a lot of technologies available. Actually, we had a screening within the project, but very few of them, they seem to be appropriate for energy communities, at least for the time being, due to several reasons. The level of maturity, for example, some of them, they produce noise as wind power. So in practice, there are very few of them which are available for energy communities. And not all technologies are applicable as wind power in urban areas. And again, last but not least, at the moment, it seems like the regulatory status for energy communities in the member states, it's a bit unsettled. As it was mentioned before, the IAM directive on internal electricity market, it provided a lot of choices for member states to shape their own energy communities. And this process has been taking a while, and potential investors, they face basically an uncertainty because it's difficult to make an investment when the framework is not clear. So this has been indicated as one of the limitations. A bit more about technical limitations and barriers, non-technical, and barriers. Costs is probably one of the most limiting factors for many of new technologies, especially startup and learning costs. The next point is that for many renewable energy technologies, the cost of capital, financing costs, is an important parameter, because a lot of installations, they have been financed initially by bank loans, and we enjoyed very low interest rates for quite many years in Europe. And today, when interest rates, they start to go up, several energy communities, they may face difficulties with cost of capital. And the last point administrative barriers to install different types of technologies such as distributed electric generation, energy storage facilities, or even EV charging points. But honestly, this varies a lot from country to country. Some countries say that there is no any challenges with it. In some countries, we have got indication that it was a bit more difficult. The last thing which I would like to mention, in the first slide, we have mentioned energy communities in the context of Repower EU, because Repower EU, it's the last initiative, the last communication addressing the present issues related to energy crisis in Europe. And you have probably seen this figure, which shows three main pillars for Repower EU initiative. And we have tried to actually see how does this correspond to the energy communities based on the current experience which we are having. And starting from the upper part, the first pillar is accelerate clean energy transition. And we clearly can see that energy communities are working on introduction of new technologies to the end users and directly involving them. They're also supporting electrification of transport. The next pillar is saving energy. We have several energy communities which actually started with energy efficiency actions and continuing with them. Also, important part of Repower EU is smart investment. And we can see several examples of energy communities helping to raise common capital for renewable energy sources, which are very capital intensive. The final pillar is diversification of energy sources, and we see that we have several examples of integration of new renewable energy sources, interaction between those, where they enjoy synergy between different types of energies. And of course, as it has been mentioned, we can see efficient utilization of local resources. So I think this was my very last slide. I think the plan is that I show two questions to the audience. So the first question is, what do you foresee as the most important enabling technologies for successful deployment of energy communities? And we hope that several choices should be possible. And the first choice is improved generation technologies, photovoltaics, small-scale wind, hydropower, etc. The second choice is improved storage technologies, electricity and thermal storage. Anything else? The third option is local smart home technologies, including artificial intelligence. So the smart home will become really smart. Operational local markets for trading energy and demand response. And the final choice is other. So I think the poll is open now.
Yes, exactly. So now all the audience representative can provide their reply to this first question. Thank you.
Just a short note, the poll is running and we have 40 seconds left to reply. Okay, we close the poll. Thank you. We can
Now
go ahead with the second question, if you wish.
Yes, of course. Thank you. The second question is how the energy communities can contribute to achieving the pan-European goals. And here you can select 3 options. The options are the first one, direct engagement of the citizens into energy generation. The second one is raising energy capital for development of renewable energy sources. The third option is utilization of local resources as a photovoltaics, wind, biomass, etc. for increase of renewable energy in the generation mix and increase of energy independence. The next option is collective provision of demand response services to the system operators. The next one, electrification of transport. And the final one is improved energy efficiency and energy savings.
The poll is now open. The replies are settled, so I will close the poll. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think this is your last slide, right, Andrei?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. So next presentation is from Mosè Rossi from Università Politecnica delle Marche. So Mosè, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria Laura. I just share the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes, the full screen. Okay.
Can you see the presentation in full screen mode?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning to everyone, and thank you for participating to this webinar. So, I am Mosè Rossi, Assistant Professor at Marche Polytechnic University, and as UniVPM, we are involved as pilot leader to coordinate all the activities to demonstrate the eNeuron tool during the project. So my presentation today is entitled about regards the enabling technology and solutions for the integrated local energy communities. In particular, what I'm going to show you are both strengths and weaknesses that could be encountered to the deployment of ILEX. So this is the outline of the presentation. I will go quite in detail in each point. So starting from the goal of the study, then giving an overview of connecting technologies and going into detail about those that are considered most important to further deploy the ILEC formation, as well as to have sector coupling between different sectors. And of course, up to now, there are also barriers and limitations that are, let's say, lengthening the deployment of ILEX, and we will focus on them, that are basically divided in 2 groups. There will be also a description of an overview of the planning and managing tools for ILEX, showing which are the pros and which are the cons, and how the eNeuron toolbox is moving to overcome this, and finally the conclusion and remarks of the presentation. So for the goal of the study, within the eNeuron project, we have performed a comprehensive assessment of the technologies that could be employed in ILEX, especially providing a detailed overview of their current status. And so in this case, in this particular case of the presentation, what I'm going to show you is a general overview of these connecting technologies based on energy vectors and of course energy technologies involved in the constitution of ILEX, and then further details regarding those technologies that can be considered as game changers in the future energy transition process. Moving further, as I anticipated you before, we will see also the existing planning and managing tools with pros and cons, and limitation and shortcomings regarding the deployment of the enabling technologies. So moving to the connecting technologies, in ILEX mainly, the context of multi-energy carrier systems is very important. So what it is needed is to have connecting technologies that are able to connect at least two energy networks. In that sense that if we have one input energy carrier, these can be connected in at least two different energy carriers. And then these energy carriers can be then used in other energy networks. This is the way how it is thought about the sector coupling. So indeed, these connecting technologies are a pivotal role in the so-called sector coupling energy transition. And these technologies could be divided either in end-use sector coupling or cross-vector coupling. As you can see here, there is this general overview, and you can see as a black box different technologies that can be involved in ILEX, as well as energy the energy vectors like hot water or thermal heat, thermal energy, cooling energy, electricity, hydrogen, water, and so on. But to try to give a better shape and to sum up which could be, let's say, the most important one to enable sector coupling, I move to the next slide in this one, where let's say I try to sum up the energy network, like the main one: electricity, heat, natural gas, cooling energy, and hydrogen, as well as those technologies that are here represented by icons. So I try to highlight those that are considered important for the deployment of ILEX in terms of, for example, considering the electricity vector, like electric vehicle demand with electric vehicle charging station, will give flexibility to the network. Then, of course, we have CHP, for example, that use as primary sources any kind of fuel, in this case natural gas, and as output we will have both electricity and heat as useful heat. And then of course we can see hydrogen that will have an important role in the upcoming years in terms of, for example, storage, but also as next kind of fuel. And then we have absorption chiller, heat pumps, but let's say these are the main ones that I've highlighted here, and then we will go through details in the next slides. So the sector coupling approach, as I said before, can be distinguished in two groups. One is the end-use sector coupling, which is more electrification oriented and more focused on the micro energy hub level, so in the lower scale. While the cross-vector coupling involves energy conversion technologies in different energy vectors and infrastructure at a higher level, in this case at energy hub level. So starting with the first group, so for the end-use sector coupling, I move to the first technology that I'm here, let's say, showing, that is the heat pump. Heat pump are electricity-based space heating and cooling solution, and sometimes it's also used for domestic hot water. In this case, we have electricity that is considered as input energy vector, and then providing heating or cooling depending on the functioning of the heat pump itself. The heat pump can be divided in different kinds according to the heat source and its sink type. For example, we have air-water, air-air, water-water, water-air, and ground source. And regarding the TRL, the technology readiness level of these technologies, of course, is mature. It's equal to 9 because it's already available in the market and quite spread all over the both domestic and industrial sectors. And also regarding the capex that are from the literature review that we have performed during the eNeuron project, we have found out that this could range between 300,000 euro per kilowatt with OPEX that generally is a percentage of the capex cost, and in this case it ranges between 3 cents, euro cents and 15 euro cents per kilowatt hour. The next one is the electric vehicle charging station. As I told you before, the role of this charging station is to connect electric vehicle with electric network. So in the sense that this could be considered an interface, so the electricity can flow into the battery of the vehicle when it is needed to the battery to be charged, or vice versa, when, for example, there is a need of electricity according to the demand of the electric network. So the flow is on the other direction, going into the electric network. So this is the way how the flexibility is performed to the use of electric vehicle charging station. The cost of this equipment is about 500 euro per kilowatt, but it could be variable, as well as the cost of electricity because it depends on the DSOs in the area in which we are going to operate. Moving then to the other group of technologies, so regarding the cross vector coupling, CHP is one of the most important because in this case we have as input primary energy from fuels, generally natural gas, and as output we have electricity, but we have also heat recovery. So in this case, the overall efficiency of the CHP increases since we are able to exploit different and to obtain and use different kind of energy vectors. In the table that I show you in this slide, I try to summarize the technologies, the range of electric power and thermal power, as well as the respective efficiency. The TRL of the technologies is of course 9 because it has been used even in the industrial sector as well as in the residential one. And also the capex, the range of the cost is quite wide because it depends on the technology used. But as you can see here, it ranges from 1,000 to 5,000 euro per kilowatt, and regarding the OPEX from 1 cent to 4 euro cents per kilowatt per hour. Moving forward, we have the absorption chiller that generally is used. It uses a heat source to then transform it in the cooling source, the cooling energy. It is generally used applied with CHP in order to constitute the so-called CCHP, so combined cooling, heat and power. But it can be used also with other kind of sources that are able to provide heat. For the TRL, also this one is it's already deployed in the market, so TRL 9, TRL of 9. And as you can see with the capex, we have also here different ranges from 170 till almost 1,200 euro per kilowatt, and the OPEX between 5.5 and 120 euro per kilowatt hour. Regarding the last technology for the cross-vector coupling is technologies related to hydrogen. As I said before, hydrogen will have a pivotal role for the decarbonization process, especially with water electrolysis, with that will be called the green hydrogen if it will be produced by renewables. In particular, there are several R&D that is currently ongoing basically on both the electrolysis and fuel cell. Here I wanted to show you only the electrolysis since it is the equipment to produce hydrogen. So far, we have in the market already available low temperature electrolyzers, namely alkaline and proton exchange membrane, mostly known as PEM. Indeed, you can see the TRL is mature, so they are quite spreadable and quite used in the market with different capex that I listed here in the table. Further developments are, on the other hand, needed for high temperature water electrolysis. Indeed, the TRL is lower compared to the low temperature one, but of course, the efficiency of the latter are, let's say, as an outlook for their future deployment, the efficiency will be much higher. For the storage technology of hydrogen, we have up to now, we have basically affirmed the two types, like physical based, either in the gaseous or liquid form. Of course, both of them, they have some issues, but not issues, I would say some limitation. For example, for the liquid form, as you can see, the temperature that we need to have hydrogen in liquid form is very, very low. So quite expensive even to maintain the hydrogen at that form. But there are still some R&D regarding material-based, so metal hydrates, that will overcome for sure several problems regarding safety, but also the capability to have hydrogen stored basically in the ambient temperature and not so high pressure, like 700 and more bars, as we need, for example, for both gas and liquid form of hydrogen. Of course, after this overview of the technologies involved, we have to take into account barriers and limitations of the deployment of these technologies to enable ILEX. So basically, we can define two different kinds of limitation that currently exist. One are technical based, and the other one are non-technical based, in the sense of regulatory, financial, and societal limitations. For the technical limitation in this slide, I try to summarize by bullet points which are the main ones. So of course, as we have seen before, with the different TRL of the technologies, this affects for sure the current, beside the current efficiency of the technology, as well as the readiness to be then deployed in the market and then make ILEX available. Low flexibility, because most of the technologies they occur depending to the, let's say, depending to which kind of technology we are going to use for each, like CHP and so on. There is a low flexibility in terms of operation, so low dynamic response, because most of them have been designed to work at steady state operating condition. But for sure, a possibility to overcome to this will be the coupling of two different technologies that will work, one better in steady state operating condition, the other one in the transient ones. Large space for produce and store energy. So, for example, in the if we look at hydrogen in the gaseous form, even if we push the hydrogen into the tank at pressure of 700 bar, we still need a huge tanks. Compare, for example, what it could be for the metal hydrates, because they are more compact, since the store of hydrogen is based on chemical and physical, both chemical and physical, let's say, link between the leaks that metal leaks that are used. Then the low energy storage density, for example, for batteries and supercapacitors, and hydrogen will be one of them that we try to overcome this. Security concerns. And of course, we have to think about the greenhouse gas emissions that are produced during the manufacture of some technologies, like, for example, just to make an example for batteries and PV. Moving then to non-technical limitation, of course, we have that since the TRL is low, the cost is higher. And while the TRL will get higher, there will be an inverse trend, of course, for the cost of technology. We have to think about the regulatory cost, because there are some, let's say, things to be settled regarding the involvement of system operator in terms of both O&M ownership of energy storage and electric vehicle charging station as well. For the hydrogen, we had a lack of infrastructure framework, hydrogen system ownership, because for example, just to give an insight, in Europe, they're trying to study the blend of hydrogen with the natural gas by injecting the hydrogen into the gas network. So there are some, let's say, study on it. Up to now, the average value of the hydrogen injected into the grid will be about 10%, but even higher trials are being attempted during this year to see how far we can move by injecting hydrogen into the natural gas grid. We have administrative barriers like permissions and agreement at different levels, and the multidisciplinary nature of these multi-energy carrier facilities is not yet considered. So also we have to think about that from the Renewable European Directive 2 in 2018, still some countries are trying to apply this kind of regulation in their own states. And of course, we have a bureaucracy that is lowering even this kind of process. So it takes time, but in the end, to have ILEX to be fully deployable. Moving to the last part of the presentation is the planning and managing tools. Of course, these have an important role for local energy planners and research institutions to provide projections about the planning tools and how multi-energy vectors can act together within an island. So far, a high number of tools have been developed, try to address the local energy planning of distributed energy resources. For example, the main goal of the eNeuron project is to develop the innovative tools for optimal design operation of ILEX with multi-energy vectors, as well as multi-energy conventional storage technologies, and try to integrate, distribute energy resources and multiple energy carriers at different scales. So to sum up, you can see in the first column the tools that have been reviewed and are available now, and which kind of energy carriers are modeled, which are the objective function and the time resolution. So as you can see here, we have some of them that are, let's say, available to, they're not able to provide, as you can see, they are not in each row green theme, but let's say the goal of the eNeuron tool will be to have this tool that will be able to have all these things all together. And so besides being flexible, try to provide even a future and a precise outlook of what could be the energy planning that will be mandatory and useful for the energy planners for designing properly ILEX. Conclusions. In the conclusions, so we have seen the achievement of the pan-European goals for the decarbonization process of the energy sector requires still several radical steps. And in this sense, ILEX might be a viable solution for connecting different energy vectors as well as energy conversion and storage technologies to enable the sector coupling approach. In the technologies that we analyze, hydrogen has an important role, and it may become a favorable option for long-term energy storage, especially when we have to deal with highly variable renewables. But up to now, we have seen that most of the technology are still under development, so they have a low TRL that reflects in a very high cost. So as far as this TRL won't achieve a higher level, the cost will remain high. And of course, the market are pushing to deploy these technologies so that also the cost will be lowered. But this is not, let's say, from the technical part, one barrier limitation, but as we have seen before, we have also regulatory non-technical limitation. And in this case, uncertainty and the absence of clear regulatory frameworks are the most significant barriers that doesn't allow the proper establishing of ILEX, even in a short time. So there are still some issues that should be overcome, but at least the direction that in this case European is moving forward is the correct one. So step by step, these issues will be overcome for sure. So these are the references of the work, the presentation, and thank you for the attention. And if Maria Laura agrees, we can move directly to the question and answer session. I will show my first question. In particular, I asked to the audience after my presentation from there, let's say, from that perspective, what are the main gaps in current tools for achieving optimal planning in operation of ILEX? That, of course, this will be covered by the eNeuron toolbox. There are several answers, and yes, the floor is left to the audience to reply.
The poll is now open. I see the replies all settled in this poll, so if you agree, I will close the poll.
Yes.
Okay, the poll is closed.
Okay, thank you, Germana. So I will move to the second question. Always from the audience point of view, what are the main three technical barriers and limitations? And you can choose among the ones listed here.
The poll is open. I can see that the replies are settled, so I will close the poll and leaving the floor for the third question.
Okay, thank you. So the third and last question is similar to the previous one, but in this case, I asked to the audience, what are the main three non-technical barriers and limitations among the ones listed here?
The poll is open. The questions are set, so the poll is closed.
So thank you very much, Musa. Thank you very much, Germana, for this poll. So next presentation is from my colleagues Martina and Amedeo. So Martina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria Laura. Good morning to everyone. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, this is Martina Caliano, research scientist at Enea. My colleagues Amedeo Bonanno and I are going to present the key actors in integrated local energy communities, the benefits of local flexibility and impact in the larger system. The establishment and the success of an integrated local energy community depend on enabling conditions that include technological, environmental, and socioeconomic aspects, energy policy, regulation framework, factors relating to the individual project, and of course on the characteristics of the actor involved. For that reason, in the eNeuron project, a review study was performed with the objective to define the main attributes and functionalities that would enable the establishment, deployment, and success of an energy community in Europe, with the principal aims, among others, to present a detailed overview of the main key actors involved and the main key issues for the implementation of the ILEX. In the eNeuron project, 18 key actors have been identified for taking part in ILEX, and for each of them, rules, responsibility, and interests in implementation of ILEC have been derived to compare them to the ones in the current energy system for analyzing the potential evolution of the actor and its role, interests, and responsibilities changed in this new energy context represented by the ILEX. Then the second point was related to the definition of interaction among the actors. This because interaction and cooperation among actors play a crucial role in achieving the objectives of an ILEC. And then we had the analysis on diverging interests among actors in the context of ILEC. This because the evolution of the role, interests, and responsibilities that can affect the actors as a result of their involvement in this new energy paradigm represented by ILEC, in some cases can lead to conflicts between the interests of the individual actors that were not in place in the context of the current energy system. And this may entail the need for the actors to adjust their role and objectives in order to make them compatible with the new energy structure and operation proposed by the ILEX. So here we have the main key actors grouping based on stakeholder characterization. In detail, we identify these four main groups. Operators and utilities include electrical distribution system operator and gas network operator, electrical transmission system operator, district heating network operator, balance responsible party. The actors in the distributed system include energy users, including consumers and prosumers, electric vehicles owners, aggregators, energy service companies, energy storage owners. For the framework setters, we have the government, policymakers, and regulators, and of course the local authorities that have a very important role in ILEX. And then suppliers and supporters that include electricity producers, energy suppliers, technology suppliers, no-profit organizations such as associations and foundations, research actors such as university and private research institute, banks and private investors, and energy cooperatives. Then here we have a grouping of the main key actors that have a central role for the local flexibility. Of course, we have the end user when acting as active customers that can provide for flexibility services, participating in the supply of the ILEC, and or as a flexibility aggregation acting as energy sellers, of course participating in demand-side response mechanisms. A central role is also can be also covered by the ESCOs that in the context of ILEC have the possibilities to integrate the role of the aggregators by aggregating flexibility of multiple customers and buildings, and also by including the energy efficiency project, the valorization that the flexibility can offer through demand response services. Then another key actor is the electrical vehicles owner that by optimizing their charging strategies or offering vehicle to X services can increase, of course, the flexibility of a local network inside the ILEC. Of course, the aggregators that have a central role, of course, for the flexibility, the energy storage systems, including electrical and thermal ones, and the balance responsible party that can access the aggregated flexibility that the ILEC can offer. As said before, we identify the main interaction among the key actors within the ILECs because this interaction can represent the key for achieving the goals of the ILECs. In detail, the actor with much more interaction is the end user, as expected, because the end users have, of course, the central role in this context. In detail, it can, we derive this interaction. The main are with the energy suppliers, the energy service companies, technology suppliers, aggregator, electrical DSO and gas network operator, balance responsible party, energy storage owners, no-profit organization, research actors, banks, of course, for private investors, energy cooperatives, local authorities, electric vehicle owners, and district heating operator. Then we had the analysis related to the conflicting interests among the key actors. In this slide, the methodology, we held this analysis by answering to the following questions. To the following two questions. In the first step, the question was, for the same actor, do interests identified in the context of the current energy system and of ILEC's conflict among them? The second step, in the second step, the question was, has the actor evolution created or could create or will create conflict with interests of the other actors involved? For answering to the first question, potential conflict between the interest in the current energy system and the context of ILECs for the same actor was found for 5 of the 18 actors identified. In detail, for the end user, as energy suppliers, TSO, for the operators, DSO, GNO, and DHO, and banks and private investors. Related to the end user, this conflict can be due to the potential non-uniform involvement of the citizens that could lead to further inequalities regarding the energy poverty and then or energy justice. For the energy suppliers, the interest in maximizing sales would conflict with the interest in increasing the renewable energy sources portfolio within the ILEC, and this can comport a reduction, a potential reduction in sales by the energy suppliers with the ILEC. Related to the TSO, the development of ILEC will lead to greater consumption of energy from distributed sources, energy sources located close to the consumers, and the effect may be a lower level of asset utilization in the TSO transmission network and also an increase in transmission operating costs. Related to DSO, electrical distribution system operator, gas network operator, and district heating operator, a potential conflict can be the division of distribution network maintenance costs between the operators and the ILEC, and the possible divergence between the operators and the ILEC goals in the use of flexibility. Finally, for banks and private investors, due to large capital costs required for the energy communities and in general for renewable energy projects that require a large capital cost, and for that, one of the main challenges for the energy community is how to secure financial means up front. Here we have conflicting interest for answering to the second question. So here we have conflicting interests among the key actors. Indicatively, the actor who has the most conflicts of interest with others are the energy suppliers, conflicting with the end user, when the end user can act as a consumer. With the energy producers, if the demand, energy demand can be adjusted, for example, with the load flexibility. In that case, the peak demand can be mitigated, requiring for less profitable power plants. Related to the electrical distribution system operator, the conflict can be for the congestion issues in the distribution grid, and they can also conflict potentially with the aggregators and balance responsible party when the entity of the aggregator does not lie with the energy supplier. Now I give the floor to my colleague Amedeo for the remaining part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can you see my screen in presentation mode, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we are going to talk about the key issues for ILEX. ILEX must face several key issues, technological, socioeconomic, environmental, and institutional in their implementation and adaptation. In the eNeuron project, the main key issues in the implementation of ILEX were derived in order to identify the possible approaches to overcome them. These issues can either encourage the establishment and growth of ILEX or limit their deployment. In the eNeuron project, we have identified 25 key issues. Here, we can see the list of these key issues grouped by typology. For instance, we have technological issues, for instance, intermittency of local REST generation demand response, the increasing of energy efficiency, the promoting energy storage, and so on. Regarding to environmental issues, we have the emissions mitigation, the waste management, the spatial issues. Regarding to socioeconomic issues, we have the paradigm shift through a community engagement, economic incentives, willingness to pay, coordination and split incentives, and so on. And finally, regarding to institutional issues, we have the trust, motivation, and continuity, the promoting the energy democracy, the ownership, the locality and responsibilities, and so on. Among the key issues I've listed before, there are some factors that act as barriers in deployment of ILEX. For instance, the factors related to site conditions, the supporting mechanisms, the issues related to the grid connection, the initial costs and financing, the trust and motivation, the spatial issues, the regulatory framework, and the conflicting interests of parties involved. On the other hand, ILEX can be proactive for energy efficiency issues, control of climate changes, and energy democracy and alleviation of energy poverty. Obviously, the enabling factors and barriers in the deployment and success of ILEX are constantly changing because they are influenced by institutional changes, energy prices, and the energy development of local territories. Here we list 3 examples of issues and the possible approaches to overcome them. For instance, regarding to regulatory issue, we have that definition of integrated local energy community is totally missing, as well as a well-defined regulatory framework. To overcome these, we need the implementation of the legislative on national level and a regulatory framework that clearly set up the actor roles, the membership rules, and all the enabling factors by taking in consideration the national, technical, financial, and social context. Regarding the social issue, the willingness to participate to the energy community is most related to social norms and trust. In order to overcome this issue, it is necessary to form a shared perception by all participating members of the identity and the vision of the energy community. And moreover, the dissemination of the results through the EU and Renewable Energy Sources Project can help in this way. Regarding to economic issue, we have that lack of financing support, the high capital costs, and the availability of lower price fossil fuels. Regarding this aspect, some possible approaches are the research and development incentives, the fiscal and tax incentives, establishing a policy with standard tariffs, and the grid connection and tariff incentives to improve the grid infrastructure, accommodating additional power. This is the last slide. Now we're going to do poll questions. The evolution of the role, interest, and responsibilities that potentially affect the key actors because of their involvement in ILEX can lead to conflicts between the interests of individual actors that were not in place in the context of the current energy system. Which conflict do you think is the most complex to overcome for ILEX deployment? The conflict related to end users, essentially the partial and or non-uniform involvement of citizens, could lead to further inequalities regarding energy poverty or energy justice. Or the conflict related to energy suppliers, the interests in maximizing sales would conflict with the one in increasing the RES portfolio, as there would be a reduction in sales with the ILEC. The conflict related to TSO, the development of ILEC will lead to greater consumption of energy from distributed sources located close to the consumers. The effect may be a lower level of asset utilization in TSO's transmission network and an increase in transmission operating costs. The conflicts related to DSO-DHO, a potential conflict will be the division of the distribution network maintenance costs between the operators and the ILEC, and the possible divergence between the operators and the ILEC goals in the use of flexible ILEC resources. The conflict related to banks, private investors. Innovative financing schemes are necessary to overcome barriers to investment. As renewable energy projects usually require large capital costs, one of the main challenges for the energy communities is how to secure financial means upfront. Okay. I leave the floor to the audience to respond to the question.
We open the polls for reply. We leave the poll open a little bit longer because by now it seems that half of the audience expressed their vote.
Okay.
The preferences are settled, so I will close the poll.
Okay. Thank you, Germana. The second question is, which barrier do you perceive as the most important in ILEC implementation? Economic, financial, regulatory, sociocultural, related to trust and motivation, market barrier, lack of a supporting mechanism, or other?
The poll is open. The answer seems settled, so I will close the poll. Thank you.
Okay, I am finished my presentation and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martina and Amedeo, for this presentation. So we are now approaching the last presentation of this webinar. And this is from Peter and Alessio from EPRI. So Peter and Alessio, the floor is yours. Just a recommendation from my side, we are running with some delay, so let's try to stay within the time frame associated to this presentation. And I kindly ask all the audience to be present a little bit more after the end of this presentation in order to discuss about the responses to our questionnaire. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so this is Alessio Coccia from EPRI Europe side, engineer and scientist in EPRI Europe. We are task 3.3 leaders. So today, me and my colleague Peter Richardson, we're gonna give an overview of what we are doing in the eNeuron use cases and business models in eNeuron project. So just a brief introduction about this, about brief overview. We are identifying firstly the customer value propositions that are made possible by using the enabling technologies in a local integrated energy community. Then, as a second part of the task, we are constructing the use cases and of course also the business models. And so with the evaluation of the emerging business models, and finally, as a final part of the task, we are aligning the business models and the use cases with pilots. So as I've just mentioned to you, the identification of the customer value proposition was the first subtask, was the first activity of this task 3.3. So what we did was just identifying 9 customer value propositions. These are divided here by the different that we found, and covers different topics such as the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, going to also the improvements of the local economy and the quality of supply, and of course also the reduction in energy poverty. So once we identified the customer value propositions, of course, in an environment in a topic related to the local energy community, we then analyzed in details by identifying the different characteristics, different topics in the customer value proposition. So Firstly, we identified how the different actors are involved and what's the interaction between each other, that these can be the end users, technology suppliers, the aggregators, and so on. After this, we identified the main roles to be played in these in each customer value proposition, that can be the power consumption, energy storage, measurement and verification, and so on. And finally, we identified the different costs that these involve, of course, the cost streams that are the costs involved for the actors to carry out their role. And finally, the revenue streams that are the revenues for the actor for the provision of a kind of service. So indeed, as a second part of the task 3.3, we are analyzing the use cases, of course, considering the common template, the IEC preference, in which we are building the use case. So as a first part of the activity, we identified the different use cases. We identified 12 different use cases here. These are summarized by the main topics that have been identified. These cover, of course, the maximization of renewable energy share, of course, also the minimization of CO2 emissions, improvement of reliability, flexibility, green EV charging, the provision of ancillary services, participation into the peer-to-peer market, and of course, also the minimization of the operating and investment costs. So once we identified these 12 use cases, we analyzed in depth each one of those by defining the scope and the objectives of those. We defined the KPI, the key performance indicator, per each use case. We then identified the different assumptions, prerequisites, and classification that, of course, cover how the different use cases are related to each other. And then we built the energy system architecture. So what's the energy system in that particular use case? Of course, this includes the different actors that play a certain role in that particular energy system. And finally, also according to the IEC template that we use, the common reference, we defined the sequence of diagrams, the sequence of actions, represented by the sequence of diagrams, of course, in which this represents how the different actors play a certain role and how these are like related, these interact each other. So as a third part, now I'm going to leave the floor to my colleague Peter, that will give an overview of the business model.
Good morning, everyone. Just sharing my screen here now. Can you see my screen in the presentation mode?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So thanks, Alessio. Yeah, so my name is Peter Richardson. I'm a technical research leader at EPRI Europe. So continuing on from what Alessio introduced here, the third part of the task that we had set here on developing the business models for the eNeuron toolbox related to the development of the actual fully detailed business models, building on top of what we had already developed in the first part in customer value propositions, and also the second part in identifying the various use cases. So to do this, we will be building out, or have built out just recently, fully detailed business model canvases in order to define each of the business models that were identified. So we broke this down into kind of 4 core parts as a methodology for developing the business models. So after an extensive review of some of the existing literature out there, we adapted some of the methods for developing business models to tailor for the eNeuron project. So we came up with this 4-step process here. The first one where we will actually, each of the partners got together and identified an extensive list of business concepts that could be considered for the eNeuron toolbox. We then did a filtering process whereby we tried to match each of those business concepts to use cases to essentially ensure that they were linked to the use cases that were identified in the previous subtask. The third part then related to clustering those concepts together, trying to streamline the concepts so that we weren't having too much in the way of any overlap, and making sure we have a very robust set of concepts. And finally, then to ensure that we're actually meeting each of the customer value propositions that were identified in the first subtask, we would develop the business model canvases that would allow us to clearly identify where those concepts are being addressed, or the customer value propositions are being considered. So in total, we identified, I think, 16 business concepts that were finalized following the streamlining process. These included a range of different concepts, from flexibility services to local markets, heat recovery, hydrogen storage, markets, blockchain providers, a variety of different concepts there that were considered in total by the concept, or by the for the business concepts. So for each of these concepts, then, to ensure that we are meeting the value propositions and providing those value propositions, we are developing a fully detailed business model canvas for each of the identified business concepts. So these business model canvases capture kind of a lot of the key aspects related to business models, ranging from things like the key partners and identifying the resources that will be needed, cost and revenue streams, and of course capturing things like the value propositions and the channels in which they're going to be provided. So this process is currently almost completed. So we nearly have each of the business models now fully defined, along with the identified use cases and the identified customer value propositions from the earlier subtasks within this task. So kind of putting it all together then at the end, the final subtask is to ensure that each of these use cases and business models that we identified and developed are aligned fully with the pilots for the eNeuron project. So in order to, this particular subtask is currently underway. So we are collaborating with the various pilot project partners in the eNeuron project to ensure that each of the use cases and business models that we have identified and developed here will be able to be demonstrated within each of by at least one of the pilots in the eNeuron project. In addition to this, and in a similar way to what my colleagues have described in previous sections of this webinar, we will also be looking at conducting a pestle analysis, which is a political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental analysis for each of the pilots related to the business models and use cases. Here we'll be aiming to just identify any potential barriers to actually implementing those use cases and business models, probably with a focus more on the technological side, which will also build on some of the earlier work done within this project by my colleagues, which they've outlined earlier on the webinar. So that's a brief overview of where we're at in this particular task related to developing the use cases and business models. Try to keep it brief there, given the timing of the webinar today, so we can jump straight to the poll questions next, just to get some feedback on those. So the first of the poll questions relates to the use cases, and it's which use case topic will be most important for integrated local energy communities to implement. So we've 5 options here. The first one is maximization of renewable technologies, and along with the minimization of CO2 emissions. The second option or use case is prosumer flexibility and the implementation of peer-to-peer trading markets. The third option is reliability of supply. The fourth option is ancillary services for distribution utilities. And if you believe there's another one, then please select other. And if you can provide some information on what that would be great.
The poll is open.
Thank you.
The replies seem settled, so I will close the poll. Thank you.
Thank you. So the second question that we have then relates to the business concepts that we are considering for the eNeuron project. So the question is, which high-level business concepts should be prioritized to encourage the implementation of integrated local energy communities? First answer is flexibility to promote self-consumption and local load balancing, or potentially variable tariffs is the second option, which would be used to promote optimal utilization of flexible assets. The third one is manufacturing and provision of smart grid technologies, which could enable integrated local energy communities. The fourth one is the establishment of peer-to-peer market providers, which would include blockchain-based platform providers. And the fifth option is other, if there's another option that we haven't listed above.
The poll is open. The replies seem settled, so I will close the poll. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. So that's the end of our presentation. I'll pass the floor back to Maria-Laura, I think.
Thank you very much, Peter and Alessio, for this last presentation. So first of all, I would like to apologize with all attendees today, because I mean we had some delay, but I really hope that you can stay a little bit more, I mean, for discussing about, I mean, your replies to our question and answer session. So I kindly ask to Germana to share the results of the poll.
Yes, I think the audience can already see the results of the poll. Just let me share my screen.
So I cannot see the poll results.
Okay. Can you see my screen? No.
I can see the results, not your
Maybe
screen.
you can start. Maybe you can start, Christina. So Germana,
Yes.
please, I mean, stop me to be a relator,
Okay.
and I will just comment on results, because this way I cannot see the results. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
So I will start so that we're not losing time, and Maria Laura will join us for the commenting. I can see the first feedback for what would be the most important enabling technology for the successful deployment of energy communities. I can see that improved generation technologies like PVs, small-scale wind, and the operational trading energy local communities are sharing the first place. And then the improved storage technologies follow, and at the end, the local smart home technologies. I would say that it is the operational trading energy local markets. It's really important, and I'm totally aligned with the feedback of our audience, but I would like also to stress how important is the improved storage technologies, both electricity and thermal, in order to be able for hosting more generation technologies, but also for trading flexibility. This is a really important factor. Of course, you have given already the underlining that it should have. So for the next question, if you can, Germana, proceed with the second one. Maria Laura, can you see the results now?
Yes, now I can see them. Thank you very much. So yes, please go ahead, and then I will comment on this.
So next, about how the energy communities can contribute to achieving the pan-European goals. The most important factor for our audience is utilization of local resources as PV, wind, and biomass, and of course the direct engagement of the citizens into energy generation. I tend to agree with both of them, because it's really important to utilize the local resource in order to have the self-sufficiency, and building on this bottom-up approach, let's say, and having the citizens in the center. So I'm really happy with this feedback. Of course, raising energy capital for development of RES, collective provision of demand responses, electrification of transport, they would be, let's say, in third position in contributing in the pan-European goals. But I think the main insight coming from this part is fully aligned with Repower and how we are having the energy communities as building blocks for RES integration.
Yes, if I can comment also on this. I'm also very happy, of these replies, because they are totally aligned with our concept of integrated local energy community, because we throw this, let's say, through this concept, through this innovative concept, the idea is to exploit for their full potential local resources, especially renewable energy sources that are present at the local level. Of course, through this interplay of energy carriers, but through the micro energy hub concept that we define through the peer-to-peer market that we are going to implement in our toolbox. We want to really foster the direct engagement of the citizens into the energy generation, because we want that our day-ahead operation scheduling that we defined, from the community point of view, are totally in line with the prosumer preferences at micro energy hub level. So I'm really happy of this reply, because it seems we are totally aligned. Maybe also before going to the next questions related to the second technical presentation, we would like to ask if there is anyone from the audience that would like to comment on this particular topic.
You can do that through the chat if you wish.
Yes. Okay, so it seems, yeah. It seems we do not have any comment, right? Because
yes, okay. I cannot see any comments, but feel free to jump into the discussion throughout this poll description analysis, let's say.
Okay, maybe I can proceed with the third question. So what are the main gaps in current tools for optimal planning and operation of integrated local energy communities that we would like to cover by the eNeuron toolbox? And we can see that the highest percentage is on flexibility on the type of users and conflicting interest. This is followed by common format for input data user-defined constraints, followed by user interface, and at the end, of the list, we have environmental sustainability objectives that must be considered together, and new user-defined technologies modifying existing ones. Okay, so also in this case, I mean, I can say that we are totally aligned with what we are doing in our project, because the first, let's say, reply is related to flexibility on the type of users and conflicting interests. Let me a little bit comment on this, because our toolbox can be considered very flexible, because we are putting together different tools that are available, let's say, from the expertise of different partners through a workflow approach that we are implementing. I mean, this type of interaction between tools in a very flexible way. And the tools themselves are based on a mathematical approach. And so it is very, let's say, a general methodology. And this will mean that it can be applied to different type of users. And regarding the issue of conflicting interests, this is another thing that we are considering in our toolbox, as I said, through the multi-objective approach, because we are going to consider cost objective functions related, for example, to the minimization of total annual cost. And at the same time, we are considering environmental impact minimization in terms of minimization of CO2 emissions. Conflicting interests, we are also addressing this type of issue by considering the interest of the integrated local energy community itself. That is, I mean, for us at the upper layer. At the lower layer, the interest of single prosumers that are going to be aligned with the objectives of the ILEC as a whole through this peer-to-peer energy market. Yes, and I think I covered this question. I don't know, Christina, if you would like to comment on this.
No, I'm totally aligned with what you said, and just a small, let's say, addition about the conflicting interest, that the important thing is that for eNeuron, we are giving not only the non-conflict, but also the freedom to the user to decide on how much he or she would like to be aligned with the overarching goal of ILEC. So this is really important. It's on their freedom of choice to decide how much he or she would like to contribute. And I think this is really important, that apart from conflict interest, we are, and we anticipate this, we are covering the freedom of choice for the prosumers, making this a realistic case, I would say.
Yes, yes, thank you. So I think we can go to the next question. What are the main three technical barriers and limitations? Different TRLs of technologies has the highest priority, and this is followed by large space required to produce and store energy, followed by low flexibility and security concerns, and greenhouse gas emissions of some technologies. Yes, I think I'm totally aligned, I mean, with this reply. We also identified the different TRLs of the technologies involved in the integrated local energy community can be, I mean, the highest, the biggest technical barrier and limitation for, let's say, implementing such a type of paradigm. As also Mosè indicated, actually, we have different type of cross-vector technologies and end-user cross-sector technologies that have different TRLs, and this is the main issue when we are going to really implement the integrated local energy community let's say, in real context. I don't know if you, Christina, would like also to comment on this?
No, I'm okay with what you have provided as explanation, fully aligned.
Mm-hmm. As for the main three non-technical barriers and limitations, let's go to the, yes, the three non-technical barriers and limitations. Actually, we see that the highest priority is assigned to cost of the technology, especially with the low TRL. That is followed by administrative barriers, regulatory cost, lack of hydrogen infrastructure framework, and then multidisciplinarity nature of the carriers that is not considered. Let me comment on this. Also in this case, I mean, I am aligned, I mean, with your replies, because the cost of technology, especially with the ones with low TRL, I mean, could be a very important, no technical barrier for implementation of integrated local energy communities. That's why through our eNeuron toolbox, as I said, we are going to implement a multi-objective approach, because of course, I mean, we can have some technologies, for example, all the technologies related to hydrogen that have low TRL and have a very high cost. That could be a very good option from the environmental point of view, but not from the economic point of view. But what we would like to do through our toolbox is to define, to present as an outcome the Pareto frontier. So all the possible trade-off solutions between the economic and environmental objective. In this way, we give the possibility to the user to choose the best possible trade-off based on his or her priority. So through this toolbox, we don't want to, let's say, give a priority to certain technologies that have lower costs or certain technologies that have lower environmental impact. We will put all together in our modeling tools, and then the output will be the Pareto frontier. So we will give the possibility to the user to make the choice based on his or her priorities. And yes, also administrative barriers are very important to overcome. Let me share with you that, I mean, we identified this as a barrier, but we are not going to, let's say, to go in details, I mean, for this type of barrier in the project. Of course, we will do this for our pilots where we are going to implement our technical solutions. So we are going to see in real context which are the real barriers to implementation of our technical solutions. But we will do this, I mean, specifically for the pilots, of course, because, I mean, this is the scope of our project. I don't know, Christina, if you would like to comment on this.
Yes, I would like to comment on these first places of the costs of the technology and the administrative barriers. Regarding the cost of the technology, I agree with you, and I would like also to add about the planning phase. So it's not only about the operational cost, but the user is given the opportunity to check the effectiveness of different type of technologies, also by including subsidize or policies that could affect the cost of the technology, and see how this is going to affect economically wise when we are at the planning phase, and then proceed to what you have clearly analyzed, and the Pareto frontier. So it's really important to see that the costs of the technology, especially with low TRL, can be evaluated through the full chain of the planning and the operational blocks of the eNeuron toolbox. And regarding administrative barriers, indeed, this is only specified for our pilots, but we hope, as you said, because this will be done for them in order to implement, because they are having great complementarity with each other. We hope that we are going to have some good practices to share in the run of the eNeuron project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to the next question. Which conflict do you think is the most complex to overcome for ILEX deployment? The highest priority is given to end users due to the potential non-uniform involvement. This is followed by energy suppliers due to potential reduction in sales. And this is followed by, let's say, grid operators, so distribution system operator, gas network operator, and district heating operator due to the divergence in flexibility. And at the final place, we have TSOs and banks, private investors, due to the large capital cost. Yes, also in this case, I'm aligned, I mean, with the replies, because of course, I mean, the main conflict is represented by these end users due to this potential non-uniform involvement. And let's say that we are going to implement through our project, we are going to implement also some let's say social strategies in order to let's say try to engage as much as possible end users in our technical solution. So we understand that our project is very much let's say as a very strong technical outcome, but we of course will touch the benefits of final users. And so through our social strategies, we are going to inform them about the benefits of this toolbox, inform and so avoid this type of conflict that you correctly foresee for the correct ILEX deployment. Yes, the other conflict that also has a very high priority is related to energy suppliers due to potential reduction in sales, because of course, we are proposing, let's say, a new energy paradigm where, let's say, end users will satisfy through the ILEC their energy demands, with a lower involvement of energy suppliers. And this is, let's say, a very clear, let's say, a conflict of interest, I can say, and so I'm totally aligned also on this. So I don't know if you, Cristina, would like to comment.
No further comment on my side. Okay, thank you, Maria Laura.
You. Of course, feel free to comment here in chat. For any comment from your side, to complement the results of these polls. Which barrier do you perceive as the most important in ILEX implementation? I can see that regulatory and social cultural trust and motivation actually have at least the same priority, so 54 and 46%. And they are followed by economic, financial, lack of supporting mechanism, and market barriers. Yes, regulatory barriers are very important to overcome. This was also clear, by the first presentation, the first technical presentation that was held by Andrei, that actually we do not have, let's say, a clear regulatory framework that, let's say, defines rules and responsibility of some key actors in managing these integrated local energy communities, in managing all types of conflicts with the external world, as grid operators, as energy suppliers, and so on. So we also think that the regulatory framework is the most important, let's say, aspect to be addressed for an effective implementation of this new energy paradigm. And also, we have to highlight that we do not have any, let's say, reference to this type of innovative energy community where we have different types of energy carriers, and so we have a lot of conflicting interests of related actors. And this is followed, of course, by social cultural trust and motivation. We have already covered, this aspect, in the previous presentation, that, of course, any type of, let's say, social campaign, social strategies should be put in place, to really foster the implementation of integrated local energy communities at a local level.
Just a comment on my side, Maria Laura.
Yes, sure.
Regarding the regulatory part, I totally agree with you, and I would like also to highlight that not only we are dealing with missing regulatory framework, especially for the integrated system approach, but it is really challenging when it comes to the regulation, how this will be transposed at national level. So we are having different gears then of implementation and regulatory regime maturity. So this is really important, and I agree that is a really important barrier. And of course then is the socio-cultural, because we are not perceive the users as passive passive actors, that they are centrally, let's say, managed. So this is really important, not only to have trust that expand not only for the services of eNeuron, but also to related and collateral concerns like data privacy or security, that these will be handled under eNeuron as really important, but also on the motivation and the perceivedness, in the sense that they are going to use and trust eNeuron solutions after also the finalization of the project. And last comment regarding the economic financial, agree with this position in the barrier, let's say, intensity, because at least for eNeuron and the first types of analysis that we are doing in the work package 3, the economic and the financial, let's say, burden for a community to use eNeuron toolbox and services are really low and under 5,000 euros. So that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Christina, for these additional comments. So let's go to the next. The next question is, which use case topic will be most important for Alex to implement? Okay, the highest priority is assigned to maximization of renewable technologies, and this is followed by prosumer flexibility, then reliability of supply, distribution, utility ancillary services, and other. Okay, so let me comment on this. I think we are all aligned, I mean, with you, because we are now in the phase of finalization of our use cases, and also in the phase of definition of the simulation framework for simulating this use case assigned to certain scenarios and to certain functionalities of our eNeuron toolbox. And we are totally aligned that actually the topic of maximization of renewable technologies has been covered by most of our use cases, but in different ways. For example, for the planning use cases, so for the use cases that are going to, let's say, that have as a main goal the planning of our integrated local energy community, we are going to maximize the let's say the implementation of renewable technologies, for example, by assigning a higher priority to our environmental goal. But we are going also to consider this maximization in the operational analysis phase and in the real-time operation by maximizing usage of renewable energy sources through the optimal day-ahead scheduling, and of course also in real-time operation from the prosumer point of view. So I'm just to highlight that, I mean, this is also for us, I mean, the most important topic that we will consider in most of our use cases. We also have, of course, prosumer flexibility is addressed, I mean, for our use cases that are more, let's say, focused on micro energy hub level, where we are going, I mean, to analyze the flexibility that can be put in place from the prosumer point of view to be aligned with the integrated local energy community objective as a whole. Of course, I mean, I can see that the lowest priority is assigned to distribution, utility, ancillary service provision. In this case, we should have, I mean, one use case, I mean, that in an indirect way, I mean, will address this type of topic. And so, I mean, we will cover, I mean, all these topics. I'm curious, I mean, to know about other, because this other, I mean, 8%, I mean, would mean for us, I mean, some interesting insights for the activities that you are doing in our project. So I don't know if there is someone from the audience that would like to comment in the chat. Also, I mean, if you're if we go to the next presentation, I mean, it would be nice, I mean, to know your opinion about this other topic to be considered in our use cases.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Maria Laura, and even the audience that provided this other information is not here. I think it is worth the try to find out and check with them as a follow-up what this other would mean and how this would affect our use cases and our activities, of course.
Okay. So let's go to the final question. Which high-level business model concept should be prioritized to encourage implementation of integrated local energy community? Oh, we have 90% for flexibility services for promoting self-consumption. That is followed by variable tariffs to promote optimal utilization of flexible energy, followed by manufacturing and provision of smart grid technologies, and finally we have peer-to-peer market providers. Yes, also in this case, I can see that the audience is totally, let's say, totally agrees that the high-level business model concept that should be prioritized is related to, let's say, flexibility services for promoting self-consumption. We are in the phase, I mean, we are now in the phase of definition of this business model concept, as was already, let's say, discussed by our colleagues from EPRI. And so we are going to consider this high-level business model concept in our analysis, because we consider this, I mean, very important for our activities and also for promoting the integrated local energy community in implementation in Europe. And so I would like to ask you, Cristina, if you would like to comment on this.
No, I'm covered, thank you.
Okay. So it seems that we covered all the questions. So we, with some delay, sorry for that, we arrived at the end of this webinar. I really hope that you found it fruitful and that we actually inspired you, I mean, for your research activities related to our activities. I'm really happy, I mean, with your engagement in terms of, let's say, providing replies to our question and answer session. I would like to thank all the participants, of course, all the panelists, all the participants, and of course, all the advisory board members that today had a chance to connect with us. Please, I mean, for any detail, any, let's say, detailed document or any resource, any paper that we published, you can refer to the eNeuron website. You can reach us through the emails that I've showed to you, and also, I mean, through the emails that are present in our website. And so I really hope that you enjoyed this webinar. So
thank
you
you
very
all.
much. Thank you.
We will
Bye-bye.
now close the webinar. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.